Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We're investigating history's first murder, but we're not just looking at it as a moral failing, we're analyzing it as a forensic, biological failure. We're going to uncover the exact science of rewiring the mind, bridging an incredibly ancient narrative with cutting-edge neuroscience. It's an amazing look at how the physical structures of our brains respond to our deepest emotions, and, more importantly, how we actually have the power to control them.
So, what if history's first murder was actually a biological failure? That's a pretty provocative question, right? Well, to answer it, we have to completely shatter what modern science sometimes calls the gene myth. That's the super defeatist idea that you're just stuck with your temperament, that your DNA permanently fixes your personality, and that you're just a helpless victim of your subconscious triggers. By looking at the story of Cain and Abel through a biological lens, we're going to explore how we are absolutely not at the mercy of our volatile emotional triggers. You literally have the hardware to change.
Take a listen to this. Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Now, this ancient warning from God to Cain, right before the unthinkable happens, is actually a profound physiological warning system for the human nervous system. When the text says sin is crouching, it's describing an internal moral alarm. It's an indicator that a volatile, highly toxic emotional state is threatening to take complete control of the brain. But the real key is in that final phrase, you must rule over it. That is a mandate for moral agency.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the first forensic case study, mapping the crime.
If we break down the pre-crime physiology of Cain exactly like a modern forensic case study, we see this incredibly rapid escalation in his mental state. It all starts on day 1 with the rejected offering. Abel brought the best portions of his flock, while Cain brought a standard crop offering. Now, the rejection wasn't really about the items themselves. It was about the heart and the quality behind them. But look at how fast this triggers an unchecked physiological response. By day 2, he has a downcast face. He is visibly, deeply angry. That is his biological warning system screaming at him. But instead of regulating that emotion, he just lets the jealousy fester. That leads to the third stage, history's first murder, which is followed immediately by the fourth stage, deflection.
The crucial takeaway here is that Cain's jealousy literally trapped his nervous system in what biologists call survival mode. In survival mode, volatile emotions like envy, anger, and fear completely take over and thrive. Your body is stressed, your vision narrows, and your raw impulses take the wheel. Cain totally had the choice to shift into growth mode by capturing his thoughts and ruling over those impulses, but he didn't. He failed to use his moral agency to transition his nervous system out of that highly toxic state.
Moving on to Section 2, the psychology of guilt, Cain's deflection.
Am I my brother's keeper? When confronted about where his brother is, Cain's famous retort is a textbook defense mechanism. Honestly, it's a lot like watching a modern suspect in an interrogation room, dodging questions to protect themselves. It's a total evasion of responsibility, a massive deflection, and a cold, hard denial of the truth. He's attempting to hide his actions by questioning his own moral obligation. This shows a remarkably rapid hardening of the heart, moving from the hot, deeply emotional state of jealousy straight into the cold, calculated denial of a guilty conscience.
Because here's the thing, guilt isn't just a feeling. It is an objective reality that leaves a massive psychological and physical trail. In forensic terms, the blood crying from the ground is the ultimate physical evidence. It's a metaphor for a truth that simply refuses to stay hidden. And this guilt forces an impossibly heavy psychological burden onto Cain, turning him into a restless wanderer, which is basically a state of pure mental instability and an inability to ever find peace. Yet incredibly, the mark placed on him highlights a profound mix of social isolation and divine mercy. It proves that while you absolutely cannot hide from the truth, judgment is often tempered with care.
Let's jump into Section 3, the biology of crouching sin.
So how exactly does an emotion like envy turn into a physical action? Well, get this, it's fascinating and maybe slightly terrifying that 95% of our daily behavior and biological responses are driven entirely by the subconscious mind. In biblical terms, this subconscious command center is often called the heart. Think about that. That means nearly everything you do, say, and react to throughout your entire day is running on a hidden autopilot program written deep within your brain's architecture.
And this perfectly explains what was really happening to Cain. His envy wasn't just some passing feeling or a temporary bad mood. It was a deeply entrenched neural pathway. These pathways are literal.
physical habits of the mind. They can feel as immovable as a mountain. Cain's negative thought pattern hijacked his mind entirely because he failed to capture his thoughts first. When you don't take conscious control of these pathways, they will inevitably dictate your biological responses.
Now for Section 4, the biological cure, rewiring the mind.
Here is the incredibly empowering part, the biological brain hack that allows us to physically cure those unchecked triggers. You do not have to be a victim of your biology. The answer lies in neuroplasticity. This is the exact biological mechanism behind the biblical command to rule over our impulses. Neuroplasticity is your brain's physical ability to literally change its own structure. Every single time you consciously choose to weaken a negative thought pattern and intentionally build a new, virtuous one, you are physically transforming your internal environment. You are reshaping the very hardware of your mind.
So, we're really looking at two starkly opposing worldviews here. On one side, the modern, defeatist gene myth tells you that your DNA completely fixes your personality, that you are stuck with your negative temperament forever, and that you're just a victim to those 95% subconscious triggers. But on the flip side, we have the incredibly empowering reality of biblical mind renewal, which is totally backed by neuroscience. It proves that your brain structure can physically change, that you can in fact rule over your impulses, and that you are fully equipped with the moral agency to overwrite your very worst habits.
Let's look at Section 5, the 21 Day Scripture Rewire. Okay, so how do we actually apply this science to our everyday lives? How do we avoid Cain's fate when our own warning systems start going off? We can actually integrate spiritual disciplines directly with cutting-edge neuroscience using a simple 3-step process to rewrite our neural pathways. Step 1 is biblical silence. Step 2 is making a conscious choice of what to focus on. And Step 3 is vocalizing truth. It all kicks off with calming the nervous system. Just 5 minutes of biblical silence brings your body right out of that toxic survival mode we talked about earlier. Think about it. When your body is highly stressed and angry, it literally cannot learn. Silence physically lowers your heart rate and actually prepares the brain's architecture to be receptive to new, virtuous thoughts. It is the absolute essential prep work for neuroplasticity to occur. And that brings us to the third step, creating an auditory feedback loop. When you actually vocalize truths, like the scriptural command in Philippians 4:8 to focus on whatever is true, noble, and right, you connect your physical voice directly to your brain's processing centers. The sources describe this as speaking to the mountain of your entrenched habits. Hearing your own voice speak a truth out loud rewires your brain much faster and way more effectively than just thinking it silently in your head. It literally forces those negative crouching habits to biologically bow to the new truth you're establishing.
But of course, doing this just once isn't enough to make a massive mountain move. By committing to a consistent 21 to 30-day routine, you really leverage the science of habit formation. Over those 21 days, you are literally forcing these new, positive neural pathways to cement themselves, turning them into the permanent, dominant fixtures in your subconscious mind. You are actively reclaiming that 95%.
Finally, Section 6, Conclusion, Mastering Your Impulses. We've seen how a tragic failure to regulate the nervous system led to history's first murder, but we've also seen how neuroplasticity gives us the ultimate biological tool to prevent that same failure in ourselves. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. You possess the exact biological and spiritual tools needed to capture your thoughts before they capture you. You are definitely not at the mercy of your biology. So ask yourself, what entrenched pathway, what crouching sin is driving your 95% today? And are you ready to rewire it?
So, thanks for joining us on Bible Brain Connections. Make sure to like, subscribe, look at our next video, or check out our video playlist so you can learn more about these brilliant connections between science and scripture. Also, please leave a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Well, goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next video.